So the internet has given rise to many great freedoms, but it's also created some new and complicated challenges. One of those is online anonymity. What are the pros and cons of online anonymity? Here are the arguments. So one of the arguments against online anonymity is that it makes us more toxic. It makes people behave more aggressively online. And there have been plenty of studies that have shown that this is the case. One interesting thing that has emerged from studies that look at people who choose to be anonymous online is that people who choose to conceal their profiles online typically score higher in dark triad traits. There have been several studies that have shown this, so that's people who score higher in Machiavellianism, psychopathy, narcissism, and even sadism, which is the enjoyment and the revelry in seeing someone else suffer. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody who chooses to be anonymous online is high in dark triad. However, it does show that people who are more likely to be higher in these dark, more manipulative types of traits more readily choose to be anonymous online. They do this in large part because they are free from reprisals. The issue ultimately is if you have a small group of psychopaths and Machiavellian types who are being more manipulative online, does that push and pull everybody else? Does it push the public conversation, the public square? Does it move it to places that it wouldn't typically be otherwise? There's a good argument to say that the answer to that is yes. One of the other arguments against online anonymity is the idea of reputation. How important our reputations actually are in terms of building bonds with other humans and how we're wired to behave in groups. So Jonathan Haidt in The Righteous Mind said that we are Glauconian in nature. Glaucon was a Greek philosopher and Plato's brother, and he put forward a thought experiment. And the thought experiment was, if you could be a deeply moral person, but everybody around you thought you were the most immoral person, or you could be somebody who was very, very immoral, who cheated, who lied, etc., but everyone believed was very, very moral, which option would you choose? If it had to be your fate, which would you pick? It's not obvious that most people, if you were doomed to be viewed as a very immoral person for all time, that you would choose that option. And Jonathan Haidt goes on to say that there have many studies that have shown that actually we really do genuinely care about our reputation, how we are seen by others. It has to do with our self-esteem. It has to do with how we bond and track relationships and reputations over time. If you think about it from an evolutionary point of view, it makes total sense. A single human being is a pretty useless creature. We need a lot of other friends and family to survive. One individual human doesn't do very well on their own. So if we, as hunter-gatherers, were traveling across the plains of Africa, and one morning you woke up and your entire tribe had left you, that would mean certain death. So we have this mechanism that's built into us, very latent mechanism, to observe where we are in relation to others, to track how we're being valued. Mark Leary calls this a sociometer, or some people refer to this as self-esteem. Point is, our reputation is a very, very latent part of our psychology. If you remove that from how we interact with others, of course, strange and unusual things occur. And that brings us to the third point, the law of unintended consequences. As human beings, we always create new machinery, we have new ideas. But oftentimes these things can go wrong for various reasons. Either we were short-sighted, maybe there was some willful blindness, perhaps it was incompetence. Either way, there is a phenomenon known as the law of unintended consequences. And one of the unintended consequences of the internet, of this great tool, is it seems to have made our public communication, our ability to discuss things with one another, more toxic. Jared Lanier, who wrote 10 Reasons to Delete Your Social Media Account Right Now, who's been involved in many of the developments in Silicon Valley for many, many decades, said that in the early days in the development of the internet, there was this strange phenomena that he and others noticed, and this was way before social media. When they had these online chat platforms, he noticed he'd be getting into these random arguments with strangers. And he said, for example, he would have arguments about who knew more about piano brands. There was something about this disjointed type of communication that seemed to bring out the worst in people. This was obvious to Jared Lanier way back in the early days of internet communication. The point is, the internet is still in its infancy. We're trying to work out what are the kinks, what are the pros, what are the cons. We're building the machine as we're flying it. We are building the plane as we are flying it, as they say. So we have to work out, What are the rules of this game? Given the fact that the internet is still in its infancy, and given the fact we're still trying to work out how to use this machine, it's reasonable to think that we must update and change our policies. The idea that we would create something as powerful and as potent as the internet and get it right on the first pass is pretty much impossible. However, what are the arguments for online anonymity? Well as studies on dark triad, there have been other studies that have shown reasons why people choose to be anonymous online. And there's actually another more positive reason that people choose it, and that's to self-express. Some people feel that they can express versions and parts of themselves online if they are anonymous that they can't in their real life. It could be anything from maybe their sexuality, their gender identity. It could be something to do with the experiences that they've had that they don't want to share to other people. Perhaps they have an interest or a hobby that they don't want everyone that knows them to know. Maybe they're a rap artist and they don't want their boss to know they rap. I'm not thinking of myself there, I'm just simply saying. Either way, expressing ourselves and sharing is essential to well-being, and there have been many studies that have shown this also. Not everybody feels that they can express themselves totally and fully in real life, and so being anonymous online gives them a buffer to express aspects of themselves that is essential to their well-being. Another aspect, of course, is the importance of whistleblowers. Whistleblowers have always existed in society. The National Whistleblower Centre, which exists to protect and help support whistleblowers, says that 2/3 of whistleblowers face some sort of reprisals. This could be in the form of social ostracization, it could be in the form of blacklisting, it could be the form of being fired or not hired at other places. Whistleblowers have a central role in highlighting wrongdoing, malpractice, fraud. We need to protect whistleblowers from the powerful, from those who will crush them down. So whistleblowers actually have a really important role in society to call out wrongdoing. Even the Federalists used pseudonyms. They didn't want everyone to know their true identity. Also, in a free society, we should be free to be anonymous. In 1960, there was the case California versus Talley. In this case, California had ruled that you aren't allowed to disseminate anonymous pamphlets. The Supreme Court shut this down. They knocked this back, and they said basically that this was impeding on free speech and free expression. And the ruling judge declared that anonymous books and anonymous pamphlets have had an important role to play in mankind. It has to do with our ability to have freedom of assembly, to express ideas, freedom from reprisals. Sometimes there are going to be political ideas that may be toxic at our time, perhaps in the future become adopted, and people have to have a certain amount of protection to be able to express themselves so they don't get trifled and stomped on by the machine. The internet is still in its infancy, and we're still trying to figure out what exactly is the right balance between freedom and minimizing harm. These are the central questions around online anonymity. We have to get these questions right. If we get it wrong, it could spell disaster for society. What do you think are the pros and the cons around online anonymity? I'd love to hear from you, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.